So, why doesn't your dog listen to you? Well, there's probably a few reasons, but today I want to talk about one concept that probably most of you guys are missing. A pressure that doesn't alternate a behavior is a reinforcer for that behavior. So, what the fuck does that mean? Well, it's the concept of negative reinforcement. So, to explain this a little bit better, I've drawn a lovely So to explain this a little bit better, we're going to use the analogy of a fire. So if we have a fire like this one, and we add just a little bit of water to the fire, and the water isn't enough to put the fire out, then what does that do? It just makes the fire bigger. And the next time we're going to add even more water. So we're going to increase the amount of water to the fire. But if that amount of water still isn't enough to completely put the fire out, then it's just going to make the fire even bigger again. So how does this apply to you and your dog? Well, we've got you here and your dog here, and he's trying to get to your food that you've got in your hand here. We might say to our dog, bed, and we want them to go on the bed whilst we eat our food. So that's verbal pressure, or we could use leash pressure. We could pick up the lead and try and put them on the bed. So if we add a pressure, so whether that's lead pressure or verbal pressure, and it's not enough for the dog to go on their bed, then it's a reinforcer for the dog next time to sit through that pressure, because he's going to get a dopamine rush. He's going to get a positive reward out of that, which is sitting here where he wants to be and begging for the food. Another example of how this can work against us is that if our dog is reactive, so we have our dog here and he's reacting at another dog, if we apply a pressure, if we apply a correction, and it's not enough to change the behavior. If you think about our fire analogy from earlier, so this is his reaction at the minute, we apply some pressure, but it's not enough to change the behavior or distinguish the fire, then we're just going to add even more fuel to the fire. So then the next time we give a correction, we're going to have to give a bigger correction. However, if that's still not enough to distinguish the fire, we're just adding to it. So that's why it's really important that when the fire is small and the reactions are small, we give a big enough correction so that we extinguish the fire straight away without it building, and therefore us having to apply more and more pressure each time. And this is the main reason that most people's reactivity never goes away. No matter how much training they put in, it never goes away, because they don't have an understanding of the pressure that they're adding only increases the fire or increases the reactivity unless we give enough of a correction for it to go away. However, negative reinforcement can be one of the most useful tools that we ever use in dog training. The reason for that is because it makes the task important to the dog. So if we use the example of someone that plays video games and they pass level 1 and they don't want to keep on playing level 1, level 1, level 1, because it's boring, because they know they can beat that level every single time. They want to progress to level 2, level 3, level 4, because of the fact that they might get it wrong. So when we apply some sort of pressure into our training and some sort of negative reinforcement, it allows the dog to understand that they might get this wrong, and therefore increases the drive for the dog to do the behavior, because they know they'll get a bigger dopamine rush once they complete the behavior. So here's an example of why adding negative reinforcement into your dog's training is a good idea. So we've got one person walking on a wire that's pretty low to the floor. We've got one person walking on a wire that's high up in the air. Now, the one that's walking on the wire that's high up in the air, there's a consequence for him getting it wrong. So therefore, there's more importance to the task, and therefore they'll get a bigger dopamine rush when they complete the task, which will make it less likely for them to get it wrong and also make it more fulfilling once they've got it right. So to summarize, negative reinforcement can work two ways. It can work for us or against us. It can work for us by adding pressure to a dog's training, can make the task more fulfilling and more likely for the dog to do it again. But it can also work against us, that if the pressure isn't enough to turn off an unwanted behavior, then it's going to be a reinforcer for that behavior to happen again. Negative reinforcement is inevitable in our dog's life. It is inevitable that they're going to face some sort of negative reinforcement. So it's super important that we train this for our dogs day to day, so that when it inevitably happens, they know how to deal with it and we can use it to our advantage. So this is why understanding negative reinforcement and how to use it to our advantage is a key factor in training your dog. So, used properly, negative reinforcement will elevate our relationship with our dog, create clarity, take away stress, build confidence, and help your dog live a more fulfilled life.